In the quiet suburban streets of Toms River, New Jersey, where manicured lawns meet the pine barrens and families raise their children in apparent safety, there stands a house that nobody wants to call home. 1247. Whitmore Avenue looks ordinary enough from the outside. A modest, two-story colonial with blue shutters and a wraparound porch that should feel welcoming. But since 1987, 17 different families have moved into this house. Not one has stayed longer than 8 months. The story begins with the Hendersons, who purchased the property in late 1987 for what seemed like a steal. Margaret Henderson, a local real estate agent, should have known better than to trust a deal that good in Ocean County. The house had been empty for nearly 2 years after the previous owner, an elderly man named Walter Grimsby, died alone in the upstairs bedroom. His body wasn't discovered for 3 weeks. Margaret's daughter Sarah was 12 when they moved in. She remembers the first night vividly, even 35 years later. "I woke up to someone walking in the hallway," she told a local paranormal investigator in 2019. "Heavy footsteps like a man in work boots. I called out thinking it was Dad, but when I opened my door, the hallway was empty. The footsteps stopped right outside my room." The Hendersons lasted 6 months. They left after Margaret found every kitchen cabinet open one morning, with all the contents neatly arranged on the counters. The police found no signs of forced entry. The security system hadn't been triggered. Margaret Henderson still lives in Toms River, but she won't drive down Whitmore Avenue. The next family, the Kowalskis, moved in during the summer of 1988. Tom Kowalski was a corrections officer at the county jail, not a man easily spooked. His wife Linda worked at the local elementary school. They had 2 young boys, ages 6 and 9. The Kowalskis brought something the Hendersons hadn't: a video camera, one of those bulky models that recorded onto VHS tapes. Tom started documenting strange occurrences almost immediately. Doors slamming shut in empty rooms, cold spots that moved through the house like invisible people walking past. The basement door, which they kept locked, would be found standing wide open every morning. But it was Linda who captured the first recorded evidence of something truly unexplainable. On a Tuesday evening in October 1988, Linda was recording her youngest son's birthday party in the living room. The tape, which has been analyzed by multiple paranormal research groups, shows a normal family celebration until minute marker 23:17. That's when a voice, clear as day, says, "Get out," in the background. The voice doesn't match anyone in the room. It's deep, gravelly, and filled with an anger that makes your skin crawl when you hear it. The Kowalskis left 3 weeks later. Tom donated the tape to the Ocean County Paranormal Research Society, where it remains one of their most compelling pieces of evidence. "In 30 years of investigating, I've never heard an electronic voice phenomenon that clear," says Dr. Rebecca Martinez, the Society's current president. "Most EVPs require amplification or filtering. This voice is speaking directly into the microphone." Between 1989 and 2003, 15 more families tried to make 1247 Whitmore Avenue their home. Each family reported similar experiences: footsteps in the hallway, doors opening and closing on their own, cold spots that followed you from room to room, and always, eventually, the voice. Sometimes caught on baby monitors, sometimes heard through phone calls made from the house, sometimes whispered directly into sleeping children's ears. The Patterson family, who lived there for only 6 weeks in 2001, managed to record over 47 distinct voice recordings during their brief stay. Jennifer Patterson, a sound engineer by trade, used professional recording equipment to document what she called the most active haunting in New Jersey. Her recordings reveal multiple voices, not just one. A woman's voice pleading, "Help me." A child crying, "Mama," over and over. And always, that same angry male voice demanding that people leave. The voices weren't random, Jennifer explains. They responded to us. When my daughter asked who was there, a voice answered, "Walter." When my husband said we weren't leaving, that same voice screamed, "Get out," so loud it peaked every meter in my studio. The house sat empty from 2003 to 2017. The bank that owned it couldn't find buyers, even after reducing the price to less than half the market value. Local teenagers dared each other to spend nights there, but few made it past midnight. Those who did reported the same phenomena: footsteps, voices, and an overwhelming feeling of being watched by something that didn't want them there. In 2017, paranormal investigator Marcus Chen decided to purchase the house outright. Chen, who had appeared on multiple ghost-hunting television shows, thought he could coexist with whatever haunted 1247 Whitmore Avenue. He installed cameras in every room, motion sensors, electromagnetic field detectors, and professional audio recording equipment. For 3 months, Chen documented everything. His findings were extraordinary. The cameras captured shadows moving independently of any light source, door handles turning with no one near them, objects moving across tables in clear view. But it was the audio recordings that provided the most chilling evidence. Chen's equipment recorded conversations between multiple entities, long discussions in voices that didn't match any living person. The clearest recording, made at 3:17 a.m. on a November night, captures what sounds like a family meeting. A man's voice, presumably Walter, arguing with a woman and child about the living ones in our house. The woman's voice pleads with Walter to let them be, while the child's voice simply repeats, "Scared, scared, scared." It became clear that we weren't dealing with one ghost, Chen explained in his final report. We were dealing with multiple entities, possibly everyone who had died in that house over the decades. And Walter Grimsby seemed to be their leader, the one keeping them bound to that location. Chen lasted longer than any previous resident, but even he eventually left. On his final night in the house, his cameras captured him having a full conversation with something invisible in the living room. The audio reveals Chen pleading with Walter to let him stay, promising not to interfere. The response, in that now familiar gravelly voice, was simple. "This is our home now. You don't belong here." The house has remained empty since Chen's departure in early 2018. The current owner, a property investment company, has given up trying to rent or sell it. Local residents report that lights still turn on and off inside the house at night. Neighbors hear voices drifting from the windows on quiet evenings. And sometimes when teenagers walk past on their way home from school, they hear that same angry voice shouting from inside, "Get out!" Dr. Martinez and her team continue to study the recordings from 1247 Whitmore Avenue. They've identified at least 7 distinct voices, including what appears to be a young girl who died in the house during the 1960s and an elderly woman who may have lived there in the 1970s. But Walter's voice remains the strongest, the most persistent, and the most territorial. What makes this case unique, Dr. Martinez explains, is the consistency across multiple families and decades. The same phenomena, the same voices, the same message. This house belongs to the dead, and the living are not welcome. Today, if you drive down Whitmore Avenue in Toms River, you'll see 1247 standing empty. Its blue shutters faded and its wraparound porch sagging slightly. The for sale sign has been taken down. The realtor's lockbox removed. Even the bravest ghost hunters think twice before approaching the front door. But on quiet nights, when the wind carries sounds from the pine barrens across the suburban streets, residents still report hearing voices from the empty house. Walter's voice, angry and eternal, reminding everyone who passes by that some places are meant to stay haunted. And some voices, once captured, never truly fade away.